ever notice how some people don't just leave quietly? No. They need an audience. They need witnesses. They need applause. That's exactly what happened the day Evelyn Carter decided to end her marriage. And not in private. Not behind closed doors. No, Evelyn chose a packed restaurant on a Sunday afternoon. With a full crowd, soft jazz playing, and champagne glasses. CLANKANG. Because humiliation hits harder when people are watching. Now here's the part nobody in that room knew yet. The woman she was about to destroy was carrying her child, and even worse, Evelyn had no idea who she was really humiliating. It started like any other perfect brunch. White tablecloths, waiters moving like clockwork, and Evelyn Carter sitting tall like she owned the air everyone breathed, which, in her mind, she did. Evelyn wasn't just wealthy, she was old money. The kind that doesn't talk about it, but makes sure you feel it. Across from her sat her wife, Naomi. Quiet, composed, hands resting gently over her stomach, 3 months pregnant. Now if you looked quickly, you might have thought Naomi didn't belong there. Simple dress. No flashy jewelry. No designer bag screaming for attention. Just calm. And that calm, it irritated Evelyn more than anything, because Evelyn didn't understand it, didn't trust it, and definitely didn't respect it. Let's not drag this out, Evelyn said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. No warning. No softness. Just cold execution. Naomi looked down at the envelope, then back up at Evelyn. Here, she asked quietly. Now listen, that one word, it carried more dignity than everything Evelyn had brought into that room. But Evelyn just smiled. Oh, don't act surprised, she said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. You knew this was coming. Naomi didn't reach for the envelope. Not yet. And that pause, that silence, it made people look, and Evelyn noticed, which meant the performance was working. Go ahead, Evelyn pressed. Open it. Naomi finally picked it up. Slowly. Carefully. Like whatever was inside didn't have the power to rush her. She pulled out the papers. I scanned the page. Divorce. Full separation. No negotiation. No discussion. Just a signature waiting to happen. Now here's where most people would break. Tears, anger, begging. Something. But Naomi, she just nodded. And placed the papers back in the envelope. That's it. No scene. No reaction. And somehow that made Evelyn angrier than if she had flipped the table. You don't have anything to say, Evelyn snapped. Naomi tilted her head slightly. I think you've already said everything you wanted, she replied. Soft. Steady. Unshaken. Now let me tell you something. That kind of calm, it confuses people who came prepared for chaos. And Evelyn, she didn't come here for peace. She came for a show. So she leaned back in her chair, raised her voice just a little higher, and said the one thing that made the entire restaurant go quiet. Let's be honest, Naomi, she said. You were never on my level anyway. Forks paused midair. Conversations faded. Because now everyone was listening. Naomi's fingers tightened just slightly over the edge of the table. Not fear, not weakness, just a shift. And if Evelyn had been paying attention, she would have noticed. You married into a life you didn't earn, Evelyn continued. And now that I'm done pretending, you can go back to wherever you came from. And there it was. The line, the one you don't cross, unless you're ready for what comes after. Naomi slowly stood up, not rushed, not shaken, just deliberate. She placed one hand gently over her stomach, looked Evelyn dead in the eyes, and said, you really should have asked more questions before today. Now right there, that moment, that was the first crack in Evelyn's confidence. Because for the first time, she realized she might not be in control of this story anymore. And what Evelyn didn't know yet was that in less than 10 minutes, that entire room would see who Naomi really was. Now, let me tell you something. There's a certain kind of silence that doesn't mean weakness. It means someone knows something you don't. And Naomi, she was standing in that silence like it belonged to her. Evelyn laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because laughter is what people use when they feel a crack and don't want anyone else to see it. Oh, please, she waved her hand dismissively. Don't start with drama. You've never had the range for it. A couple at the next table exchanged a glance. Because now, this wasn't just a breakup. This was turning into something else. Naomi didn't react, didn't defend herself, didn't argue. Instead, she reached into her purse. Now, if you've lived long enough, you know this when someone stays calm in chaos and then reaches into their bag. Something's about to change. Evelyn leaned forward slightly, eyes narrowing. What are you doing? Naomi didn't answer. She pulled out her phone, unlocked it, tapped once. Twice. Then placed it gently on the table and slid it toward Evelyn. Before I sign anything, Naomi said quietly, I think you should listen to this. Now, Evelyn didn't like being told what to do. Not by employees, not by strangers, and certainly not by Naomi, but curiosity. Curiosity has a way of slipping past pride. What is this? Evelyn asked, her voice tighter now. Naomi simply nodded toward the phone. Just press play. Now here's the thing, when you're used to being in control, you don't realize how fast that control can disappear. Evelyn hesitated. Just for a second. Then she hit play. At first, nothing but static. Then a voice. Male. Familiar. To familiar. She doesn't know anything, the voice said. I told you Naomi's not the type to question me. Evelyn froze because she recognized that voice. Immediately. It was Daniel. Her business partner. Her right hand. The man who had helped her build half of her empire. The recording continued. And the company transfer? Another voice asked. Daniel chuckled. Already handled. Everything's moving through the shell accounts. By the time she notices, it'll be too late. Now listen, you could feel the air change in that restaurant. Even the people who couldn't hear the recording could see something was wrong. Evelyn's posture shifted. Her confidence. It flickered. What is this? She snapped, louder now. Naomi's expression didn't change. I thought you liked things done in public, she said calmly. Transparency, right? Evelyn slammed her hand lightly on the table. Where did you get this? But she already knew the answer. She didn't want to hear. Naomi tilted her head slightly. That's not the right question. The right question is, why didn't you know? Now that right there, that's when control doesn't just slip. It shatters. Evelyn grabbed the phone, replaying the clip, faster this time, more desperate. Because now she wasn't watching Naomi, she was trying to catch up to a reality she didn't see coming. You're lying, Evelyn said. But her voice didn't carry the same weight anymore. It was thinner. Less certain. Naomi leaned in slightly. Not aggressive, not confrontational. Just closer. You built your world on control, she said softly. But you never stopped to check who was standing quietly inside it. Now, let me ask you something. How many times have you overlooked someone because they didn't look powerful? Evelyn stared at her. Really stared this time. And for the first time since this whole thing started, she wasn't looking down at Naomi. She was trying to figure her out. Who are you? Evelyn asked. And this time it wasn't an insult. It was a real question. Naomi didn't answer right away. She simply placed her hand gently over her stomach again, took a small breath, and said, that depends on how much you're ready to lose today. And right then Evelyn realized something she hadn't felt in years. She wasn't the most powerful person in the room anymore. Now here's the thing about power. Real power doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't rush. And it definitely doesn't need permission to be seen. It just reveals itself. And when it does, everything before that moment starts to make sense. Evelyn stared at Naomi like she was looking at a stranger, not the quiet woman she married, not the patient partner who never argued, but someone else entirely, someone she had completely misjudged. You're playing games, Evelyn said, trying to steady her voice, but it didn't land the way it used to, because doubt had already crept in, and once doubt enters the room, confidence quietly leaves. Naomi exhaled slowly. Then, without breaking eye contact, she said, my name isn't Naomi Brooks. Now that right there, That's the kind of sentence that doesn't just land. It echoes. Evelyn blinked once, twice, like her mind needed a second to catch up. What? Naomi reached into her purse again. This time, she pulled out a slim leather card holder. From it, she slid a single card across the table. Slow, deliberate, final. Evelyn didn't want to pick it up. You ever have that feeling where the moment you look at something, everything changes? Yeah, but she picked it up anyway, because not knowing was worse. Her eyes dropped to the card, and that's when her entire body went still. Naomi Sinclair, Executive Chairwoman, Sinclair Holdings Group. Now listen. If you've ever been around real money, you know that name. Sinclair wasn't just wealth. It was legacy. Global investments, private acquisitions, influence that didn't make headlines, but made decisions. And Evelyn, she knew exactly who the Sinclairs were, which is why her fingers tightened around that card. That's not funny, she said. But her voice had dropped lower. Careful. Because now she wasn't sure who she was talking to anymore. Naomi, no. Sinclair tilted her head slightly. I'm not known for jokes, she replied. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. Because in that moment, Evelyn's mind started connecting things she had ignored. The way Naomi never asked about money, the way she stayed calm during business stress, the way she listened more than she spoke. Like she was always observing. You're lying, Evelyn said again, but this time, it sounded more like hope than accusation. Naomi didn't argue. She simply tapped the phone still sitting on the table, checked the registration number on the back of the card. She said. Evelyn hesitated. Then flipped it over, typed it into her phone. Waited. And there it was, clear as day. Verified. Public record. Naomi Sinclair. Now, I want you to imagine something. Imagine realizing the person you've been talking down to, the person you've been underestimating, the person you just tried to humiliate in public, was never beneath you. You were just standing in the wrong place. Evelyn leaned back slowly, like the air had gotten heavier. Why? She started, then stopped, because there were too many questions. Naomi helped her out. Why did I marry you? She asked calmly. Evelyn didn't answer, because suddenly she didn't feel like the one asking questions anymore. Naomi folded her hands gently. I wanted a life that wasn't built on power, she said. Something real. Something earned. And for a while, I thought that's what we had. Now that line? That wasn't anger. That wasn't revenge. That was something worse. Disappointment. Double quotes. And the company? Evelyn asked, her voice quieter now. Naomi gave a small nod. Yes, I knew. Double quotes. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. All of it. Evelyn pressed. Naomi met her eyes. All of it. Now that right there. That's when the ground doesn't just shake, it disappears. Evelyn's thoughts were racing now. The deal with Daniel. The transfers. The quiet approvals she never double-checked. Because she assumed she didn't need to. You let it happen, Evelyn said. Naomi's expression didn't change. No, she said softly, I documented it. And right then Evelyn realized this wasn't a divorce anymore. This was a setup. Now listen carefully. There's a difference between someone reacting to betrayal and someone preparing for it. One is emotional. The other, strategic. And Naomi Sinclair, she had never been reacting. Evelyn's fingers were still wrapped around that card, but now it felt heavier, like it carried consequences. Real ones, documented. Evelyn repeated, her voice tight. That word didn't sit right. Because documented doesn't mean suspicion. It means proof. Naomi gave a small nod. Double quotes. Yes. Double quotes. Simple. Certain. No drama. Evelyn let out a short breath. Almost a laugh, but there was no humor in it. You're telling me you just watched, she said. Watched my business partner try to steal from me? Naomi didn't flinch. I watched patterns, she corrected. I confirmed behavior, and I waited. Now that right there. That's not patience. That's precision. Evelyn leaned forward, her voice dropping. For what? Naomi's eyes didn't move. For you to show me who you really Were double quotes silenced because suddenly this wasn't about Daniel anymore. This wasn't about money. This was about her. Evelyn sat back slowly. You're twisting this, she said. You're making this about me to distract from whatever game you're playing. Naomi gave a faint, almost tired smile. No, she said quietly. I'm finally stopping the game. Now, let me ask you something. How often do people reveal themselves? Not when things go wrong, but when they think they've already won. Evelyn swallowed hard because that question. It hit a little too close. You could have said something. Evelyn pushed. If you knew about Daniel, if you knew about all of this, why stay quiet? Naomi's gaze softened just slightly. Because I needed to understand something first. Evelyn frowned. What? Naomi paused. And when she spoke again, it wasn't cold. It wasn't sharp. It was honest. Whether you would protect what we built, she said, or sacrifice it the moment it stopped benefiting you. Now that line, that one doesn't leave room for excuses. Evelyn shook her head. That's not fair. Naomi tilted her head slightly. No, she agreed. It's accurate. And there it was. Not raised. Not dramatic. Just placed like a truth that had been waiting long enough. Evelyn looked around briefly. People were still watching, not openly, but you know how it is. Quiet glances, half-turned heads. That subtle shift. When a room senses something important is happening, she leaned in again, lowering her voice. You're trying to make me look like the villain, she said. Naomi didn't move. You did that on your own, she replied. Now here's where things started tightening, because Evelyn realized she wasn't steering this conversation anymore. She was following it. What do you want? Evelyn asked. And this time there was no arrogance in it. Just urgency. Naomi reached for the envelope, the same one Evelyn had pushed across the table earlier. She tapped it lightly. I'll sign, she said. Evelyn blinked. Caught off guard. That's it? She asked. Naomi nodded. Double quotes yes, but not before we finish what you started. Evelyn's stomach dropped slightly because that sentence, it didn't sound like closure. It sounded like a warning. Naomi reached for her phone. Again. Tapped the screen, then turned it slightly so Evelyn could see. Emails. Bank trails. Recorded. Calls. Time. Stamp. Organized. Clean. Not chaos. Evidence. You said you value efficiency, Naomi continued. So I made this simple. Evelyn's eyes moved quickly across the screen. Faster. Then slower. Then stopped because she recognized the accounts. The transfers, the approvals. She barely glanced at. You've been building a case, Evelyn said quietly. Naomi gave a small nod. Yes, and Daniel? Evelyn asked. Naomi's voice didn't change. He's already being handled. Now that right there. That's when you realize you're not ahead. You're not even equal. You're behind. Evelyn leaned back again. This time, not out of control, but because she needed space too. Think. To breathe. To catch up. You planned this, she said. Naomi met her eyes. No, she replied. I prepared for it. And just when Evelyn thought she understood the situation, Naomi added one more sentence. Quiet. Steady. Final. You didn't just lose your marriage today. You lost everything attached to it. Now here's something people don't talk about enough. It's one thing to lose power in private. It's something else entirely to lose it where everyone can see. Evelyn sat there, staring at the phone, at the files, at the quiet certainty in Naomi's voice, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't know what her next move was. And when a person like Evelyn doesn't know what to do, they stall. They look for control anywhere they can find it. This doesn't prove anything, she said, her voice sharper now, reaching for authority. There are always explanations for numbers, for transfers. Naomi gently shook her head. No, she said calmly. There are explanations. And then there are patterns. And you've left a very clear pattern. Evelyn opened her mouth to respond but stopped, because deep down, she knew She had cut corners, signed things quickly, trusted Daniel because it was convenient, because it made her life easier. And now, that convenience was catching up. You're trying to scare me, Evelyn said, but it didn't carry the same force anymore. It sounded like someone testing a door. Already knowing it was locked, Naomi leaned back slightly. I don't need to scare you, she replied. I just need you to see what's already in motion, now. Right at that moment, something shifted in the room. At first, it was subtle. A waiter approaching. Slower than usual. A manager standing near the entrance. Watching a couple whispering just a little too closely, because tension. It spreads, even when people don't know the details. Evelyn noticed it too. Her jaw tightened. She lowered her voice further. You're making a scene. Now that right there. That's almost funny, isn't it? Naomi raised an eyebrow slightly. A scene. She repeated softly. Then she glanced around the room. At the people pretending not to stare. At the silence that had replaced the music. I believe you started. That, she said. And just like that, another piece of control slipped. Evelyn exhaled. Sharply. Fine, she said. Let's say just for a second that any of this matters. She leaned forward. Eyes locked. Voice low. What exactly do you think you're going to do with it? Now listen, that question. That's the last stand. That's where someone hopes. Maybe the other person hasn't thought that far ahead. Naomi didn't answer immediately. She let the question sit. Breathe. Stretch. Then she reached into her purse one more time. This time, it wasn't a phone. It wasn't a card. It was a folder. Thin. Black. Structured. She placed it on the table. Gently. But with weight. Evelyn looked at it. Then at Naomi. Then back at the folder. You've been busy, Evelyn muttered. Naomi didn't react to the tone. She simply opened the folder and turned it toward Evelyn. Legal documents, prepared filings. Names. Dates, signatures. Waiting. This is a formal submission draft, Naomi said calmly. For financial misconduct, breach of fiduciary duty, and fraud. Now that word? Fraud. It doesn't just sit quietly. It echoes. Evelyn's eyes flicked across the page. Her breathing changed just slightly. But enough. You wouldn't, she said. But this time, there was no edge, just disbelief. Naomi met her gaze. I already have. Double quote silence. Heavy. Final. Because once something is filed, it's no longer a threat. It's reality. Evelyn leaned back again. But this time there was no strategy behind it. No calculation. Just impact. You're destroying everything, she said quietly. Naomi's expression softened just a little. No, she replied. I'm separating myself from it. Now that line? That's the difference between revenge and clarity. Evelyn looked around again, and this time she didn't just notice the room. She felt it. The weight of eyes. The quiet judgment. The shift in energy. Because something had changed, not just at the table, but in how people saw her. And right then her phone buzzed. She froze. Just for a second. Then picked it up. One message from Daniel. We need to talk now. Evelyn's stomach dropped because that message, it didn't sound like confidence. It sounded like panic. She looked up at Naomi. Really looked this time and asked the question she should have asked a long time ago. How far does this go? Naomi held her gaze unshaken. All the way, she said. And in that moment, Evelyn realized something she couldn't undo. This wasn't just falling apart. It had already fallen.
Want part 2? Comment next part below. Like the video and subscribe for more powerful stories.